We hear a lot of perspectives on the Mankind podcast. Inclusion of a guest is not an endorsement of their views, and the opinions expressed here do not always represent the mission or values of the Mankind Project USA.
What if the most radical thing a man can do today is be gentle? Hey, it's Poison. Today's episode is one I'm genuinely excited to share. I'm sitting down with Johnny Cole, founder of Hey Brother Company, Hey Brother Co. He's a men's work leader, he's a feminist, and he's a marketing consultant who's helping redefine what brotherhood looks like for a new generation. Johnny grew up in not great stuff. He grew up in a home shaped by violence. But rather than repeating the cycle that he grew up in, he chose to break it. He studied gender and he studied power and violence. He did his healing work. And he's now mentoring high school boys and leading men's retreats that feel more like sacred spaces, though he'd hate to hear me say that, than locker rooms, and carving a path through social media that other men are sure to follow. This conversation is a wake-up call for anyone who's ever felt like the old ways of being a man just don't fit, especially if you're a younger man. We'll explore how this shame-based masculinity breaks us down and how honest, loving connection can build us back up. From unpacking toxic scripts to confronting the rise of the manosphere to talking about how 15-year-olds are sitting down to have healing conversations with their dads. This one goes deep. Johnny said it well. Masculinity is not monolithic. You can be a gentle man, a fierce man, a sweet man. You're still a man. And I'm also super thrilled to say that since recording this episode, I've had the opportunity to hang out with Johnny in person in two different cities at two different events, Big Tent Summit in Colorado and the Future of Fatherhood Conference in New York City. We laughed, cried, we talked shop. We even had an epic night of karaoke with a whole crowd of extremely excellent folks, including some really, really heartfelt dudes. Proud to call this guy a friend, and even more excited to see what will happen next. Welcome to the Mankind Podcast. Welcome back. It's Boys and Hodgson with the Mankind Podcast, the show where we set out to prove week on week, and I think we're doing an incredible job, that there is more than one way to be a man. I am stoked to be sitting with Johnny Cole today. Johnny Cole is one of the founders of Hey Brother Co. And Johnny and I just recently met with this, the Boys Club, which you'll probably hear more about as I continue to interview folks who I'm meeting through this network of men's groups, men's work, men's self-improvement, all kinds of different angles. Say hello, Johnny.
Hey, everyone, and hey, Boysen. Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure.
I'm excited for the conversation. Looking forward to it. So let me tell you a little bit about Johnny Cole. Johnny is a marketing tech consultant by day and a men's work facilitator by night. We've also already established that he has alts of himself walking around out there in the world. He began his men's work journey attending the University of Rochester. He presided over an organization called Men Opposing Violence Everywhere, MOVE, that focused on sexual assault prevention education. During a fifth-year scholarship of gender studies coursework, he interned and then worked full-time at the Willow Domestic Violence Center in Rochester, New York. After graduating, Johnny realized his responsibility in reaching other men to unlearn patriarchy and thus improve social conditions for all. And he pivoted to a formal men's work practice, leading his first men's retreat for Hey Brother Co.'s inaugural cohort in July of 2022. Johnny, thank you for being here. So first, I'm going to lead off right from the top. Mankind Podcast, where we're setting out to prove that there's more than one way to be a man. So how is Hey Brother Co. helping to prove that there's more than one way to be a man?
Excellent question. Love this one. Hey Brother Co. is through education and training, providing men not just with emotional skills, men and boys, with emotional skills that we need in order to thrive and be partners and community members and brothers and sons and, just the people that we need to be, but we are also modeling for the world that masculinity and manhood is inherently diverse. It's not monolithic. One of the tenets of Hey Brother Co. is kind of gentleness and platonic affection, and trying to reclaim the word brother that I feel in some ways has been bastardized and has lost a lot of meaning in today's culture. And so through our social media advocacy and some of the content that we put out, we actually represent in visual format men being loving with one another, men being kind, men being, excuse me, men being gentle and affectionate, and building close relationships, because I think there's a large swath of men's work content that specifically focuses on cold plunges and punching pillows and screaming your rage out and, cathartic cries, which we have those too, but we really do prioritize, hey, you can be any sort of man. You don't have to want to shadow box or box someone in a Thunderdome style, uh, extravaganza. You can be a sweet man. You can be a gentleman. You can be a fierce man. You're a man.
I love masculinity is not monolithic. I love that. So that's like, make that a t-shirt, put it out there. When did lightning hit you around you said responsibility in your bio? When did the lightning hit you? How did you recognize that, oh shit, this is me? I need to do this.
Yeah. So I, having grown up in a DV household, where my father was my primary abuser, with, alongside my mom and my sister, he was abusive to them as well. I had a model of masculinity laid out for me that was centered around domination and hierarchy and getting your way based on intimidation, and shame was the primary operator in my life, bestowed on me by my dad.
Mm.
And so I spent a great deal of time as an adolescent, as a teenager, and then as a young man going off to college, trying to prove my worth for the world around me, and tried to prove my worth through performing rituals of masculinity, of the common ones, whether it was sports participation, riding my motorcycle, binge drinking, being gruff and tough, getting into a few scraps, things like that, whatever it was. At the same time, I had a side to me that was very justice oriented,
Mm-hmm.
and had been privileged in having a close relationship with my mom and my sister, and with lots of girls in high school, and then young women in college, who gave me an inside view into their world, which, as I said, is an extreme privilege, because I started to realize that something wasn't quite adding up in the ways that boys and men acted and treated one another, and then the things that they were doing to women and girls, and all of our collective experiences of men were just not quite the same. So to that end, I realized I don't want to live in that world where I myself have been victimized by men and boys, but also I don't feel as close to men and boys, because I can't trust in the script of what guys do.
Yeah.
Didn't make me feel comfortable. So I think, yeah, it started in college, just this feeling that, like, I needed to engage with other men and talk about what's wrong with our culture of masculinity. And then that lightning rod really solidified for me when I started taking gender studies coursework, and I realized that it's not that men are inherently bad or evil or there's something wrong with us. It's truly this value system that we've all been indoctrinated into that is causing us to perform behaviors that are net harmful to ourselves and others. And if we can just get together and take accountability and unlearn some of that stuff, everyone wins. And because of my privilege being a cis white 6'4" man that was a late bloomer, but now physically represents a lot of the trappings of traditional masculinity, I have a privilege I can get an ear from a lot of men that would otherwise not engage in this type of conversation. And so that I wield that responsibility very deliberately.
Thank you. This is going to be playful. This is going to be a little bit, but wait a minute. You took gender studies courses. Aren't those the courses where they tell you that all men are shit and that we're all bad and that men are evil and that all of this stuff is bad. So tell me like about what from the inside out for you, how you learned and fought back against that kind of BS.
Yeah. I think that anybody who has a vision of feminism or gender studies that it is just entirely man hating needs to pick up a book and has just not picked up enough books. And I don't mean that in an intellectually superior way. I just mean that very pragmatically, very, very matter of fact. If your perception of feminism is that, then it is limited. And I highly encourage you to start with Bell Hooks' The Will to Change. And that is one of the most popular, like, seminal feminist texts on men and masculinity. It was written by a Black woman, an amazing scholar. And that is a radical feminist scholar. So if you read that work and you still think, wow, women hate men, and, just, then I don't know what to tell you. I think that's willful ignorance at that point. But I'll take a step back here to say, being in Gen Z through headlines and just general, college and growing up, I was aware of things like the Me Too movement. I was aware of words like feminism, but I didn't actually know too much about what that entailed. I would not have been able to define for you what is the patriarchal value system and what are some of its tenets and components. So I opted to take some gender studies courses at my university because I wanted to learn more, since violence against women was an issue that was very personal to me, and my own experience with domestic violence led me to understand how prevalent and violence is in our society, especially family violence, and that men tend to be the perpetrators of this. And so I wanted to understand this more, because I too grappled with this idea of, like, am I inherently bad? Am I destined to repeat some sort of cycle? And why is it that a lot of my friends who are women have experienced some form of sexual violence or harassment? Like, it's just far too common for us to not be paying attention and talking about this. So I attended gender studies coursework, and at first I looked around and I was like, yeah, I was oftentimes the only man in the entire classroom, and at times discussion did tend towards, well, writ large, capital M men do these bad things.
Right.
What's up with that? And it was easy to feel a bit defensive at times. But in reality, gender studies is, I think, what saved me and allowed me to continue on my journey of healing and unlearning, because it took it away. It was no longer about, am I inherently bad?
Yes.
Are men inherently bad? Do I have shameful things to be ashamed of because of my natural sensitivity or my desire for expression, or all the times I've been called the F slur or whatever, all of these things? Is it about me? No. There's this big value system that's at play, that's bigger than you or I could conceptualize until you sit down and study it. And that framework made me feel so empowered to understand the way the world worked. And it was no longer like, I'm an individually bad guy, that's an individually bad guy. It's like, we have all been encouraged to perform these behaviors under a doctrine of domination. And once I've identified that, cool, now I have the language, now I have the tools, now I can work to detach myself from it. Whereas before, I was like a flywheel just spinning, and again, just based so much on shame, which is not a good place to be. So gender studies and feminism is an essential part of my men's work. Like, I would not be here without that. And I highly encourage everyone to participate and get on board, and don't be so uncomfortable with the word patriarchy or the word feminism. Like, I'm boldly, proudly a feminist.
Thank you. Yes. Beautiful. Yeah. And I had it's interesting. So I am not your generation. I am a Gen Xer. So, like 20 years earlier, going to college and having some similar awakenings and similar experiences based on what I started to learn from the women who were in my sphere, and how that's beautiful. So he just got delivered a coffee. I'm just going to say
Yes.
hooray for the people who are taking care of you. Where I started to see that, I grew up in a family of like all men and boys, and I have 6 brothers, 5 of whom I grew up with, and do not I did not have experience of domestic violence, I had experience of a whole lot of other negative male behaviors,
Yeah.
a whole lot of other stuff that was kind of swirling in the mix. And when I first started getting exposed to feminist thinking, feminist thought, kind of constructivist ways of seeing masculinity, seeing gender, seeing all of these systems, I was super fucking defensive for a
Yeah.
very long time, because it was like me being reflected back at me right out there. But there was, in the continuing education, and again, shout to Bell Hooks, The Will to Change is like a life altering book.
Truly.
And it's so compassionate and it's so loving. Like, the whole focus of Bell Hooks's work in multiple volumes was love. And how do
Yeah.
we create more love? And how do we create blessed community? How do we bring these things forward? Right. So it's like, okay, when I let go of the shame, let go of the stuff, and then recognize where I can step forward, I think that just changes a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So what are some of the, you and I will continue with the kind of generational conversation. What are some of the things that you think younger men, let's go with like gold and shadow, right? What do you think younger men
Yeah.
are doing beautifully out there in the world? And then let's go into the shadow side too.
Yeah. I think that younger men are overall much more expressive in a variety of ways than any generations previously. And while we are seeing, I'll caveat that later, but
Yeah.
I love fashion today. I love how expansive fashion has become, and
Expensive might be true
style,
too,
and
but yeah.
expensive is true too. Yeah. But I love to see that it is much more normalized than ever before for young men and men in general to express themselves, whether it's through, makeup and fingernail painting, but also just sense of style. I love that younger men are doing that really well. I think younger men are also, in many ways, forming deep bonds in an unprecedented fashion, because some of the things that were present when you were a boy are not as present today.
Yes.
For example, as normalized in the school setting, right? Like the types of bullying that went on, the types of masculine teasing and whatever else is not the same. And so younger men are just doing a beautiful job of breaking some cycles, and I really applaud the younger generations for this in the capacity that they're doing it.
Yeah. And good. And there was a caveat. Thank you. I totally agree with all that. And I think that out there in the culture, we're also seeing a whole lot of things modeled that do represent this expansiveness, that do represent this, I'm going to say fluidity also, that do represent this fluidity around kind of archetypal femme mask writ large, the ability
Yeah.
to flow and move with that, and the ability to be responsive in that. I think all of those things are great. And now we could also talk about like young white men voting, how young white men voted in the last election, and the kind of other path. There's a fork in the woods here for some young men. So let's talk about that side also.
Yeah. I think in the last few decades, the man code, the script, has been eroded in some senses. And as feminism and some feminist dialogue has become more mainstream, at large, a lot of boys feel defensive, criticized. There's this, the classic one is people hear the phrase toxic masculinity, which is now, again, lost all meaning in my opinion,
Yeah,
but they hear toxic masculinity and they've totally misinterpreted it, and they think it means masculinity is toxic. So we have existed in this world where what it means to be a man is no longer as clear, because a lot of the things that we were relying on in your generation, well, to be a man means I'm never going to wear pink, and I'm never going to have a limp wrist, and I'm never going to do like this list of things. I know those are the rules, and as long as I can stay away from those, then I will be able to prove my manhood. Those things are not as apparent anymore.
Yeah.
And when the rule book is no longer as clear, and while that is liberatory, what it means is there's less for me to cling on to. I'm stressed. Exactly. Yeah. Like, so what the hell are the rules?
Yeah.
What does manhood mean? Because I'm being told or at least I'm hearing, that masculinity is toxic and I can't be this way. And I shouldn't be like my dad or my grandfather's generation in some senses, right?
Yeah.
Because my dad says the F slur and gay a little bit too much. And my grandpa never cried in front of anyone. So I'm not supposed to be like that. But at the same time, I'm also hearing that, men used to go to war, and
Yeah.
I should, and young men don't know how to have commitment anymore. And I don't have a good work ethic. And so I should aspire to be like my hardworking grandfather in those ways. And then, so like, confusion. I would say there's a general confusion on what does it mean to be a man. And in some cases, I think there's a rejection of the masculine identity because of all the negative associations with it. So there are a lot of young people and boys who are like, I don't really want to be associated with manhood
Right.
in any other social context. These are kids who, like me, would watch like Treasure Planet or, read exciting Treasure Island stories, read exciting stories growing up and be like, oh, like boyhood is cool and adventurous. I want to be a boy. I want to be a man. I like this. And all of a sudden they're like, no, because there's just too many horrible, bad things associated with manhood right now. The man versus bear, like people are fed up with men, frustrated with men, scared of men, being subjugated by men. And so I don't want to associate with this. But then what do I do? And who am I? And how do I find community? Because I still present and I am, a cis white, like mask person. So how do I find my niche? And so I think those are some of the challenges that young men are facing. And in the vacuum of a healthy model of masculinity, that is where the manosphere comes in, and this call for a return to traditional gender ideals just indoctrinates so many. It's so tantalizing and so appealing because there's no alternate script.
And not just a call to traditional understandings of masculinity, but like to a call to overtly dominating ways of being, not just over over women and girls, over business, over other men, over everything, right? Which might feel really good to my adrenal system for some period of time, dominating, killing it. You're killing it, man.
Yeah.
Right. But in the end, it's like it's a shallow well. There ain't much there. Yeah.
Well, to your point earlier, where you mentioned, you hadn't experienced domestic violence growing up, but you experienced so many other things. That was one of my realizations, is that I have a unique element in my story in some capacity. I mean, DV is common, but like a lot of the men who attended the first Hey Brother Co retreat, a lot of the men that we serve have never experienced family violence, but the emotional wound, the emotional neglect, and some of the socialization under patriarchy that is, again, just based around shame and teasing and breaking down your identity and always being hyper vigilant about where you stand with other masculine identifying people and feeling an absence or a lack.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, I have no doubt you have some traumas having 5 brothers, you know what I'm saying? Like, of like wanting to deeply love and connect with your brothers, and then feeling internalized homophobia about like, is it gay that I want deep connection with my brothers, and why do we not see each other? Oh my God. Like I can only imagine. And so many men have that same experience.
Yeah.
Feel that emotional wound, have not had a sufficient connection. And so that we end up getting swept up in, as you just said, this desire for domination, because if I can just prove that I'm crushing it enough and I can crush it and kill it and be in control in all of the areas of life, then my God, then I will be enough and life will be good and I will be validated and it will be, finally, I will be able, I'll feel good. And that's
finally I'll feel good. Yeah. And and then reality, right? So all the wisdom is out there and it's never changed, and all the Zen wisdom out there, it's like, sorry, you don't get that, because everything's burning and we're all going to die. So, your temporary feeling of killing it, your temporary feeling of being in control is just like trying to push away the void, when vulnerability is the state of humanity. Like, that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Talk about Hey Brother Co. So yeah, I love the framework that you guys bring. I love the way that you present yourselves and the kind of social kind of advocacy work that you're doing, what is it that you love about building this organization and working with men?
One of the things I love is that it has facilitated my growth and connection with amazing men in an unprecedented way. Like, I'm now at 27 feeling so fulfilled in my life because I have the friendships that I always craved. Like, I have the sense of brotherhood that I always craved, and earlier versions of me were so internalized or internally homophobic and questioning, like, why, if I should want this connection. And so now I'm fast forward, and I have so many men who challenge me and support me and love me, in the way that I truly always dreamed of. And it is because I built up a men's work practice, and I dragged a couple of them to the first retreat that I designed because it was an absence in my own life. And I was fucking fed up with it. Excuse my language, but I was fed up with it. It was not just that I had this strong sense of moral conviction about, like, men are hurting and women are being hurt and men are being hurt and kids are being hurt, and this stops now. But I was like, I'm screaming into the void here. I'm so fucking lonely. Like, I don't know the last time I felt safe shedding a tear in front of a man.
Yeah.
And like, I need this. And so I'm 2.5, almost 3 years since that first retreat. And I have designed for myself what I always envisioned. So I'm incredibly proud of that. So that's one of my favorite parts, is that the men who have joined me, some of my co-leaders, have become like my brothers, who have healed the part of me that was abused and discarded by my dad, and used to question whether I was man enough, whether I was worthy of the affection and connection with men. And now I'm like, I radiate it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so worthy. I am so lovable. I am wonderful. I am abundant. And that has taken a lot of work. The other thing that I love about Hey Brother Co. and about leading men's work and working with men and boys is it's like flipping a switch. Being confident enough to set a precedent of emotional leadership and make it safe for men and boys to talk about some of these things. I can see it in their eyes. I can see it in their spirit and their character when they're like, they get a taste of it and it's the first time and they're like, whoa, I didn't know this existed. And that really fuels me. That really electrifies me and energizes me, because I'm kind of like, hey, yeah, you see what I see? Like, come on in, the water's fine. I don't mean to sound culty when I say this, but like, you see it. Because I honor that it's been deprived of us for so long, and you've been living by a set of rules for a really long time. But this is the way, So that's another thing that I really love. And so, to talk a little bit more about our programming, I have led a series of men's retreats over the past few years. I don't have any currently scheduled for 2025, as I've pivoted some of my, launched an online community and have done a bunch of social media stuff, and I'm applying to grad school. So I haven't planned any retreats this year, but we have led retreats in person. We lead in-person workshops in Cleveland, in San Francisco when I visit here, pop-ups in New York, things like that. And then we also have virtual men's groups and virtual book club separate. The book club is open to all genders. The men's groups are for masculine identifying folks, so LGBTQ men welcome and wanted. And then I have a high school boyhood mentorship program that I just wrapped up the last session of yesterday, and that I've been running for 2 years for about 30 boys in my community, which, as I say that out loud, I feel very emotional, and I'm feeling some tears come up because it is like one of the greatest parts of my life for the past 2 years has been working with high school boys at my old high school, creating a program for them that I desperately needed when I was a teenager. And some really good work has been done there in just getting boys to learn like the rape culture pyramid, and also to practice affirmations of self and of other boys, and to deconstruct some of the homophobia and I don't know, it's really amazing. So I have my fingers in a lot of pies, and Hey Brother Co. operates in a lot of different spheres, and we haven't perfected anything yet, but the movement is get men and boys well, and that's what we're doing.
Get men and boys well. Thank you.
What's up, everyone? Now, I've found that the best habits are the ones that require the least decision making. That's why Magic Mind has worked so well for me and for my wife, because one bottle, one sip, and one clear mental shift to start the day. It's not loaded with sugar, and it's not another energy drink. It's a clean blend of ingredients like ceremonial grade matcha, rhodiola, and bacopa that help you focus, create, and stay calm, all without needing to re-up mid-afternoon. And here's what makes it even better. The team behind Magic Mind are legit. They hand check every bottle, test every batch, and donate to mental health initiatives with every sale. It's high integrity from top to bottom. So if you want to build a better daily rhythm, head to magicmind.com and use the code MANKINDMAY. That's magicmind.com and use MANKINDMAY at checkout to get 20% off your first order. When you support our sponsors, you support our show. And trust me, you will not regret it when you get your hands on this stuff.
And I saw the emotion land on your face as soon as you started talking about working with high school kids. I would be super curious to hear more about what that's been like and to learn more about what the response has been. I think that's what I'm really curious about. Like, how have boys responded to being in this kind of environment with a man who can set an emotionally safe space of leadership? That's cool.
Yeah. I take pride in being a skilled men's work facilitator. I also think that boys are chomping at the bit for this type of connection and work. And I think that similar programs such as what the Man Cave in Australia does,
Right.
and what Ashanti Branch does with the Ever Forward
Yeah,
Club
yeah.
and the Million Mask Movement. I mean, there's other practitioners who are doing amazing work with boys because boys do crave connection. But so the response has been overwhelmingly positive. Our program is completely voluntary. You can drop out at any time. You don't have to show up for each session. And we've never had anyone drop out of the program in 2 years. They show up every time, even when I don't bring donuts. they show up every time. And some of the growth that has occurred, especially in the boys that have done the program for both years, because we've had some that just came on the second year, is monumental. I've got freshmen, who were freshmen last year in the first year, who have sat down with their 40-something-year-old dads to have a kitchen table conversation that they initiated, to say, Dad, I'm proud of you. I just want to say I'm really grateful for you. And I'm so sorry for everything that you've been through, because you never had access to these types of resources. You never had anyone in your corner like the way that I have now. And when one of my students shared that last year, that he talked to his dad, my co-facilitator and I started crying in the, we cry in front of them often.
Yes.
To show them that it's acceptable, it's totally good. But like, it made me feel so emotional, because that is an example of cycle breaking, like in real time, and intergenerational, like, cycle breaking.
Yes.
But yeah, boys love this. Like, boys are amazing. Boys are kind. Boys are emotionally intelligent. Boys are intuitive. They've just do not have enough support in accessing that side of themselves. And once they receive the support, you would be amazed at how willing and ready they are to operate in that space. And does it mean that they're never going to do anything stupid or wrong or bad again? No, not at all. We have had to have several accountability processes as part of this. But the difference is that instead of a punitive disciplinary process that looks a very specific way, now it is a collective accountability process that involves several older mentors, a sit-down discussion, exploration of the boy's feeling state. Why would you take that action? Why would you do this? And then learning and growth. And there has been a really positive impact across the entire school as well. That teachers have noted, the administration, they're like, boys are acting differently just because of this collective mass of 30. Like, other boys, there's way less teasing in the weight room. There's way more uplifting on the sports fields. There's less catcalling in the hallways. There's more boys that are willing to speak up and tell their friends, don't say that, or hey, leave him alone, or do XYZ. Like, it's there's changes happen. And yeah.
That brings me back. So, we started in talking about systems, and we started in talking about patriarchy, and we started talking about undoing things. So, what do you think? And this, to me, this is a lever point. This is one of those places where you can, if you have a large enough lever, you can move really big objects, right? So it sounds like that's one of the ways that you are impacting the world is you found a place to put a lever and you're moving an entire system. Are there other places out there that you see that, here we are, we're getting ready. You and I are going to be in person in 2 weeks at the Big Tent Summit. Thank you, Christopher Kyle. Thank you, all the dudes who are bringing us all together. There's going to be an amazing group of folks out in Denver, Colorado. It seems like this is one of the conversations. How can we shift systems? You've found a place to shift systems. What else are you thinking about this? I know you're also applying to grad school, so you're thinking big picture.
Yeah. Excellent question. So, it's my contention that men's work is one of the things that will save the world. Specifically, comprehensive men's work curriculum and programming that can be delivered at scale to high schools, middle schools, universities, workplaces, and government institutions. I think that we are at a place and a point in time in global history where it is it would be irresponsible and ignorant to say that men and boys are not hurting and our collective wounds are not causing a myriad ripple effects. I mean, environmental degradation, violence against women and girls, sexual violence, mental health and suicide, like any of these problems, I contend confidently can be sourced back to a patriarchal value system and unmet needs of men and boys. And so when we build up emotional skills, we incentivize connection and community and feeling proud of your masculine identity, however that means to you, rather than a specific vision, many of those problems fade into the mist. Or we get enough critical mass of stakeholders who are now bought in on solving those problems, because one of the things of patriarchy is numb yourself and be apathetic about the world. A real man doesn't give a shit about anyone but himself and maybe his family. A real man doesn't matter if he litters. Fuck it. Real men eat red meat. I don't care about my carbon footprint. Don't be a soy boy beta. So when we get rid of some of that stuff, we can do some big things. So I believe that in order to be a government leader or a world leader, you have to go through a comprehensive feminist men's work curriculum. And I think I have some great ideas on what that curriculum should look like for you. I don't think that just because you are a relatively progressive looking, polished Justin Trudeau type, that gives you qualification at all. No, I think you actually need to do some men's work and again, a feminist informed men's work lens, and not in a performative, I stand with women way, but like, how do you stand with women? Have you understood the nuance behind the value system you yourself grew up in so that you can make effective decisions as a leader to advocate on behalf of everybody? And what are you modeling for the world as well? Like, are you just like, again, not to pick on Justin Trudeau, but are you just like a handsome, good looking guy that's like waves, whatever? Or are you truly modeling for the world what healthy manhood looks like? Because frankly, our current in the US, our current regime is filled with men that have never felt validated or accepted by other men, ever. They are, I know that their actions are violent and domineering and horrible and they need to be held accountable, but instead of seeing them through this lens of like, oh my God, like fear, I feel sympathy. I feel pity. I feel sadness, because inside all of those men, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Pete Hegseth, Mark Zuckerberg, JD Vance, all of those men have literally never had a long extended hug and a man looking in their eyes and be like, hey, you don't have to do anything to be worthy. They never have done that. And so they're convincing themselves that the only way to worthiness, to validation, is to accumulate power and be around other powerful men, and maybe that'll scratch whatever itch they have. So that was a very, very tangential. So if I could be more succinct, I think that men's work programming needs to be delivered at scale for international leaders, for workplaces, for universities, primary and secondary schools. And I am very confident that it is an economic intervention and a public health intervention to do this.
Don't know why, but I'm just going to say UN sustainability goals. right? There's like at least 4 of the UN sustainability, 4 out of 13 or something like that, that men's work would help. Men's work would have a profound impact on creating more safety for women and girls, on creating economic sustainability, on creating environmental healing and sustainability, on create, like all of these things that we're, And I just want to say, I don't know if any of those men have ever had that long hug, but one thing I do know for 20 years in men's work is that one hug ain't going to do it.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Like, it is the ongoing practice. It is the ongoing return to, it is the ongoing bumpers that the men who support and challenge us give us in an ongoing way, that it's like, it's work. It's ongoing work to flex those muscles and build them.
Well said.
Yeah. So cool. I think that like all the questions that I put in our little document to cover, we've like totally covered it. And I just got to say, the last 5 minutes or so, there's at least 3 or 4 or 30-second clips in there that are like, hell yeah, man, you just promoted the shit out of Hey Brother Go on a global scale with that. That was powerfully said. Really good stuff. Yeah.
Thank you. Hopefully I wasn't a bit too rambly, but I think that if we have a couple moments to just touch upon the manosphere and tying into your last question as well of I'll use an example that we need desperately so many more men in education. We need more male teachers, more male presences in our schools, because that, much like nursing, much like therapists, has been a feminized profession. And because of that misperception and the fact that it is woefully underpaid, men do not select into it. And a lot of the gender dissociations we have around, well, should you as a man be wanting to spend time around children and be involved with youth, right? And so all of that's these social misperceptions, like, thanks, Boy Scouts of America and Catholic Church, you fucked it up for the rest of us. But I I think that in order to arrive at the social outcome where boys have better sense of self-esteem, have better pro-social connections and pro-social behaviors, and are performing well in school and are more engaged, they need to have a balance of gender solidarity, and they need to have role models. And the presence of male role models in a community, such as in your school, it doesn't have to be in your household. That's a very common traditional conservative talking point, is that, you need a father in every household. Not necessarily. That is not what the research says. And you can ask Scott Galloway or Richard Reeves. A community member and teachers will do. But are those teachers and community members anti-patriarchal? Are they practice themselves in men's work?
Yeah.
Because it's not going to do anything if it's, and we've run into this in my high school program, is, a couple of years ago, the football program, it's like, I asked them, I was like, well, why do you call other boys, pussies on the football field? Well, I guess I actually, at one time when I didn't make my hit, my coach told me I was that. And that made me feel, how did that make you feel in the moment? It made me feel bad. So that I told the kid next to me when he didn't make his hit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. So, and the Netflix show Adolescence, if you critically analyze episode 2, not a single male teacher in that building is loving or affectionate with any of the boys. There are some very subtle tonal changes as well, glaring tonal changes that happen when they are disciplining the boys. They shout at them versus when they're speaking to the girl students at that school. And so we really need men who are emotionally competent, willing to model men's work themselves in our schools. And until we have that, the Manosphere, which is not just Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro, but is the Paul brothers and the Nelk boys and a lot of different, who else? The Tin Men, and you've got. I'm reading right now "Men Who Hate Women" by Laura Bates, which is an amazing book, and she outlines the MGTOW, men going their own way,
Yeah.
pickup artist communities, the incel community, the all of the different genres and flavors of Manosphere, red pill community. And all of these guys are, while they have their different offshoots of this like glaring wound, men's work is what they need, really. And that's, I don't know. The manosphere will not be solved by a return to traditional gender ideals, or us lowering the collective standard for men and returning it to no, like
the manosphere is also not going to be solved by shaming, purity culture, and gatekeeping, right? Things that more progressive, no, not me, not all men tend to project out into the world, right? So now we're going to gatekeep everything. Now we're going to have purity tests to see whether you're this or that. Because what the manosphere has done, what all of those communities have done, is in some sense they've provided a mirror for men to look at and get validated. They may be getting validated with really destructive, unhealthy messages. They may be getting beliefs validated that are really unhealthy beliefs for them to continue, but they are getting the validation that reinforces the staying. So I have a sense of belonging in my grievance, right? And we need to get beyond a grievance culture into a sense of belonging in complexity, a sense of belonging in recognizing both sides. Yeah.
To that end, I see it happen all the time in my TikTok comments specifically, that if one or two more incel or manosphere type guys will, from a burner account, anonymously comment on my stuff, everybody will start piling onto that comment and say, this is why you're alone, you're a fucking loser, or this is why you have a tiny, they'll use this emoji, and for the listener, they'll imply the guy has a small genitalia, all of these things that, like, this is why you're sexless, like, oh, just admit that the guy in the video gets bitches and you don't, and so that's coming from someone that's technically or self-prescribed free Palestine, leftist, whatever, and they're they're body shaming or telling a person, they're using the word bitch, right? As they're using, and I'm like, whoa. First of all, every comment that you're doing, this incel guy keeps coming back, and now there's this thread of comments on my video because this is the most socialization and engagement that he's had in a while, and it's any attention. So that's why he keeps coming back, and that's why he's commenting back at you things like, I'm a supreme gentleman, and some of these, again, these like manosphere terms that accusing him of that he has a small penis is not going to get him to see the light. And that same body shaming would be unacceptable in other contexts with other players involved. So that's perfectly to your point. We are not going to shame our way into a culture of healthy masculinity or into a healed world, because the current culture is one that operates on the basis of shame. Patriarchal masculinity is a system of policing that uses shame to enforce its rules. And we can't use shame to enforce a different set of rules. We're going to catapult the number of men that go and hang out on incel forums and hate women and feel lonely and sorry for themselves and whatever. And you know what those men are very, very good at is becoming cannon fodder for the military industrial complex. That's a very late in the game thing to throw out there. But guess what? If you have men that have never been taught about domestic and emotional labor, cannot cook or clean for themselves, are no longer being selected in partnership or friendship, feel alone and isolated, they've got a couple places they could go for 3 square meals a day: the military, the police force, or prison. Prisons that are privatized, that people get money, business people and people in government get money for awarding federal and state contracts to use prison labor. Anyway, so that's what you get when you have a large population of unhealthy, disconnected, angry, irate men. Is you have a lot of cannon fodder and prison beds that your tax dollars pay for.
Which in a kind of culture of extraction works quite well if what we're basing our culture on and what we're basing all of our systems on is extracting resource value out of raw materials, and we're going to call these men like raw materials to be extracted, right? Wow.
Right.
So, and where we started, we end. Bell hooks, white supremacist capitalist patriarchy. Throw in heterosexist, and you've kind of got the whole quad there of the kind of systems that we are trying to unravel with this work.
Yeah. My closing thoughts and call to action for the listeners and viewers would be that the last chapter of The Will to Change, Bell Hooks, talks about the fact that we need men who are courageous enough to heal and break cycles and speak out. So if you are a listener, there's so much more I could be doing in my personal life to speak out, to model love and all of these things, right? But it's these small ways, small decisions that we can make to be more loving with our language, to speak out about things that matter, to be an active bystander. I mean, it is truly like starting to engage in those ways. It doesn't have to be some huge grand gesture. You don't have to commit your life to men's work in the way that Boysen and I have. But what you do need to do is start engaging more and being brave, courageous enough to flip the script, because all of us can analyze the ways that we're living our lives now. There are still a ton of ways that we are adhering to patriarchal norms, and you can just pick one or two of those swim lanes and do a little bit to, move the needle and go away from it. So be brave, because it requires courage.
Thank you. Be brave. It requires courage. And there are men out here ready to catch you and hold you.
Yeah.
Right? And that's cool. And there are more and more and more of those men out here in the trenches doing that work, who can support you and help you and be models for you and be your brothers. So thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother. So excited to meet you in person.
Keep listening. Come back to the Mankind Podcast.
This has been the Mankind Podcast, produced in association with the Mankind Project USA. And of course, I want to thank you, the listener, because through your attention and your support, you make it a heck of a lot easier for us to let men out there in the world know that they are not alone and that there is more than one way to be a man. And if you've been enjoying the music throughout this episode and all of our episodes, check out Jim, Donovan, and the Sun King Warriors. I have links to them in the show notes. Now, the fee for this episode is simple. If you found gold and insights that you believe could benefit your loved ones and those you care about, be sure to share it with them. And of course, remember that life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us, so long as we rip the pen out of fate's hand and become the author of our own story. So my friend, pick up the pen and we'll see you next week. Lots of love.
Hey, it's Boysen. On the Mankind Podcast, we've brought some incredible guests on to talk about the importance of doing the work to improve our mental and emotional health. And here's the truth. Multiple times over the last 25 years, I've had the help of one-on-one work with some amazing therapists. For me, for my wife, for both of us as adoptive parents, and for our kids. The Mankind Project and Men's Group, though awesome, are not a substitute for professional mental health support. And so I'm thrilled that the Mankind Podcast now has BetterHelp as a sponsor for the show. BetterHelp works online. It asks you what you're working on and then matches you for live one-on-one sessions with a licensed therapist, someone trained to work with you, listen, and offer helpful insights. I'm using BetterHelp. It's super easy, and I like what I'm getting. If getting one-on-one support in the comfort of your own space feels like a good direction for you, I invite you to check it out. Go to the link in the show notes or betterhelp.com/mankind. And if you sign up, you'll get 10% off your first month of therapy.